Welcome back to the Crypto Trends Podcast, where we cover all things cryptocurrency, blockchain, Web 3.0, and AI. I'm Robert Croak, and I am joined by my co-host, Armando Pantoja. Both of us and our amazing team are excited to bring you the best information, guidance, and strategy each and every Wednesday, except for this Wednesday. And that was only because of all of the storms and hurricanes. Our dear friend Armando was trapped somewhere in America. So always remember to follow along and remember to take notes and take action. Let's get into talking point number one. XRP's legal victory and what it means for the future of cryptocurrency. Such incredible news, not just for XRP holders, but the crypto space in general. And before you all come at us, remember, we've been saying for weeks that when the settlement occurred, we did not expect a huge run-up right out of the gate, and we did see a nice run-up in the last couple days, but certainly it's what we expected, and it's just such great news for the overall market. So walk our listeners through a little bit of your thoughts, where this goes, will the appeal happen, and what this does to maybe jog the crypto market into a bull market so we stop seeing so much downward pressure.
But first I want to say is that people look at XRP today, it's up 20%. And they say, I thought you said it was going to go to $8. I've actually got those messages. On our live last night, somebody asked, why is it not at $10 already? It's because there hasn't been enough time. Right? You remember when the news broke that XRP won the lawsuit and there would be a settlement, XRP at the time was down 8-9%. It recovered all of that, and then it went up to almost 30% above that within the same day. This is a bad day. This is a bad week for stocks. The last 7 days have been horrific. So for it to go up 20% in one day, that is a lot. And it's going to continue to move forward as the more clarity from the decision comes out. Once XRP starts announcing plans, they attract more talent. They start solidifying all of those partnerships that were on the shelf. We're going to see XRP move closer to those $8, $9, $10 targets that we have. They were fined $125 million, which is far from the billion they wanted to charge them. $1 billion severely hurt them. 125 is a lot less, and it can come down in appeals. So just remember, this is an example of how regulatory issues can affect coins, and it's unexpected. We can't predict things like this, but XRP's superpower going forward is that they're the only crypto on the planet with regulatory clarity. SEC can't come after them again. No other crypto on earth has that, and I think it's going to be a lot of bright days ahead for XRP.
I think it's really important, and you covered one key point. It's too soon. People think that when there's a settlement like this for XRP, which is huge news, that all of a sudden the price just goes up. They forget that it takes time to trickle down from retail investors and the people like us that are watching the news hour by hour to keep ahead of things to get to the family offices, the institutional investors, and everybody else. So that's just one of the key points. We said a few weeks ago that we thought this settlement was coming. We thought it would be for a very low amount, which I believe the settlement amount that they agreed to was a drop in the bucket for Ripple Labs and just a great move forward for the crypto markets in general, because if you think about it, all we're seeing is really good news in the XRP case and throughout cryptocurrency, while not seeing the price improvements just yet.
Those price improvements, they're going to come. It's going to be delayed, right? And I always tell people significant events, regardless of when they happen, it could be 9/11, it could be COVID. We don't understand the importance of those events until way after. Like during 9/11, when it was in real time, I didn't understand the impact of it. You understand weeks later.
Yep.
Once we see in XRP those institutions come back, we see the token moving up in value. We're going to see a lot of people start talking more about it and start investing in it. Over time, you're going to see the impact of this decision. It may not be in the first 24 hours. We're not 24 hours past it. When this airs, we'll be about 48 hours after the decision. No, less than that, 36 hours after the decision. So it's still very early. And I know that it's going to be a positive next 2 years for XRP and Ripple Labs. That's why it's important to stay on top of developments and understand how developments affect assets. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, stocks, housing, real estate, because regulatory actions do have a big impact on the valuations of assets, right? So this set a big precedent ahead. So any other cryptos in the future are going to say, hey, look at XRP. So the good thing about a case of this magnitude is it sets precedents. So now these precedent can be used with future crypto companies when they have to fight lawsuits in the future.
Yeah, and I think getting this court clarity really paves the way for XRP's growth, because what it does, it takes away the fear. You mentioned something on our live the other night that I think is very critical that no one is talking about. And that is XRP has been in a holding pattern for years because of the lawsuit and the pending settlement. And so when you think about it from that perspective, who knows where XRP would be now if it weren't for all of that? And the other important part that you touched on is the fact that they haven't been able to get top talent because no one knew the future of XRP and Ripple Labs because of the lawsuit and the settlement. So now it is wide open, the gates are open, and they will be able to attract all the top talent, even though the potential for an appeal is there. I don't see an appeal happening because with a new president coming in, I think they're going to calm the jets on the SEC. I think Gensler will get fired, and we will see a wide open market so the U.S. can try to regain their lead and really be a world dominance in the crypto space. And that is something everyone has been fearful of for quite some time. So let's get on to our next point. Again, just happened, hot off the presses this week, and that is Morgan Stanley's big move. They announced that they were allowing their 15,000 financial advisors to start selling Bitcoin ETFs to select clients in the next few days. And this is huge because what people don't understand, this happened really great timing-wise right before the announcement of XRP's settlement. Imagine that. And so for me, this is another piece of huge news that people just wipe under the rug and not realize this is all laying the groundwork for the future. And everyone needs to keep in mind that Morgan Stanley has over $5 trillion in assets under management. So that automatically creates a huge influx of additional investor capital right out of the gate when they start selling these to all of their clients. And we knew this was going to happen. So many people did not follow BlackRock's lead, and they got caught with their pants down because all of their clients are pressuring them and say, why are you not doing this? We need exposure to this. And now they're playing catch up, but it's huge news for the crypto space. So let's walk through that a little bit.
Yeah, I like what you say because you touch on a lot about what institutions are doing and how they move. And I've learned a lot from you in that regard. But one thing that I did know in the past is that I was poor growing up, but I ended up becoming rich. I'm rich now, but I was poured in. So I started to understand how things work, right? Is that banks are not just there to hold your money. That's poor people think they just go and do transactions. That's not even their thing. They do is advise high value clients, right? Yep. And when you become a high value client, all of a sudden you get phone calls. Hey, how you doing, Mr. Pantoja? How's it going? Just checking in, seeing how it's going. Everything's going. Right. Then you start getting calls. Hey, we got inside track on this investment or that investment or whatever, because they want to make sure that you see them as a source of information before everybody else gets it. So they have a drive or a motivation to make sure that they don't miss anything big. So they'll call their private clients, they'll call their high value clients and tell them about things because they want to be the ones you associate with making money and having your money secure. So the fact that Morgan Stanley, one of the biggest institutions in the world within banking, is starting to tell their high value clients about this shows that they've already done the analysis, they've already understood, they can already projected where Bitcoin's going, they already projected where the ETFs are going. They're trying to make sure that their clients associate them with wins. And that's a big thing for a company of that size to do that. So they're doing all these things behind the curtain where the average person can't see it. So you may hear a little news here and there of it, but once those curtains get pulled back, when the bull run is in full effect, we're going to see the impact of all of these things all at once, and crypto will explode to the sky.
And that's why we continually tell our audience, and I know they don't believe it or they think we're wrong, but we are still early. When a company of the magnitude, think about that. Morgan Stanley has over $5 trillion under management. That is client money that they're investing. $5 trillion, and they have not been in cryptocurrency as of yet. That's amazing. And this is why we're always trying to educate everyone, and I appreciate the compliment. I try to focus on the news that gets swept under the rug, that nobody's really talking about, because that's where the real wealth transfer happens, is when we see this impact on traditional finance by the BlackRocks or the Fidelities or now the Morgan Stanleys putting all of their might into these markets, where a year or 2 years ago, Fink was telling people that it was a scam and it was fool's gold and all this stuff. And now they realize it's too big to fail. And that is why they are all rushing and spending millions and millions of dollars to create programs and products to be able to allow all of their institutional clients to be able to invest in this sector. And what it does is this just paves the way for all the other banks to follow. And it's just really important for everyone to understand this. I know sometimes we talk about this over and over again, but we want you to be able to understand, because during these turbulent markets is when everyone has those knee-jerk reactions we talk about, and it just puts everyone in harm's way. I've had dozens and dozens of calls in the last 2-3 weeks of people saying, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and sell all my Bitcoin and I'm going to put it into a CD, or I'm going to put it into a high yield savings account. And I just tell everyone, go for it, but you're going to leave generational wealth on the table, because you're not understanding these market cycles are normal when there's adoption and disruption like this in the crypto markets.
Yeah, so a market cycle has 4 phases. You have accumulation, which is when the banks, the elite and the rich get in, and that's when you'll see negative news about an asset. This 4-phase cycle is any asset. It could be real estate, stocks, crypto, whatever. As you move forward to the second phase, which is markup, you start to hear stories like this.
Yep.
JP Morgan doing this, or Bank of America, or BlackRock, a lot of money coming in. Then markup comes. That's when the assets start seeing a slow drop. But we haven't really seen that. We've returned to all-time highs, but we haven't been in a clear bull market in crypto yet, because you have to have sustained value past that all-time high. Moving to second phase, third phase is distribution. Now, that's when the banks and the rich have made all their money and they start dumping on the average man. And then that's when you see the positive news in this cycle, because it's too late. It's not too late because you still have another cycle coming, but it's too late to make money in this cycle. And that's when the people who got in at this time start selling to you. And that's how they make their money. Every dollar that goes into the market has to come out. It's a zero-sum game. If somebody makes $1 million, they took it from somebody else in the market. It could be distributed among many people or on some other industry or whatever, but it's somewhere in that whole environment, somebody lost $1 million. So then you move into markdown. That's when it drops. Then the whole cycle starts back over, accumulation. Then this whole cycle starts again, and you start hearing news and all this. But you have to understand these things to make money, because the fact that they're doing this tells you that the next phase we're going into is markup, and it's going to be a exponential growth in almost every major cryptocurrency going forward.
Yeah, we always talk about and joke about that the best performing accounts out there are for dead people and people that lost their passwords. And I know it's funny, but it's actually pretty factual, because in those instances, they can't have these panics and these knee-jerk reactions, and they just leave it go. And when you do that, it's just so important, because even if you look at the stock market this past week, everyone panicked on Monday because of the big retraction. And most people, and I know a lot of people that sold, they're like, I'm going to sell everything right now. And then 24, 48 hours later, it's right back up. And that really leads to the fact that you're going to always have volatility, especially right now. We have geopolitical tension. We have a potential war between Iran and Israel. We have the presidential campaign right now that is just all over the place. And then we also have Japan, what's happening with the Japanese stock market. All of this is happening, yet Bitcoin was pretty stable. And even though it went down, it did not crash. And that is one of the key things. When you have all of these fake influencers and these clickbait influencers that just care about clicks and likes, they're the ones that are always going to give you these very clickbaity posts, because they want to create fear so they do well, not caring what the audience does. And what bothers me about that tremendously is the fact that they hurt people, because people live and make their investment decisions based on the ebb and flow of these influencers and these educators. And the educators need to understand the responsibility they have to create content that is more factual, but also helps people know what to do rather than just doing it for yourself. That's been one of my biggest issues, is seeing all of these people that we know, the market's crashing, Bitcoin is crashing, everything's crashing, when it might be an 8% or a 12% retraction. This is normal business. And the real professional investors look at that as an opportunity. We're high-fiving each other saying, where are we going to get more money? What are we buying more of? And just in the last 2 weeks, I bought more Ethereum, more Ondo, more XRP, all of this, even though the markets do not look great right now, because I know where they're going. And so I think that's very important for everyone to understand, to not have these knee-jerk reactions during these tumultuous markets, because they will recover just like the stock market has, just like the crypto market has, and always does over time.
So I agree with you. And while we're talking, I just thought to myself, I said, I'm going to put 10,000 in once this podcast is over, because it's severely down. It took almost a 26% drop recently. And I always said that's a great chance. Whenever these crashes happen, you have to look at the dynamics and what's happening mathematically, right? Is that Bitcoin drops a little, all the other coins drop a lot. But in the recovery, Bitcoin recovers a little and they all recover a lot. That big swing on altcoins is where you can make a significant amount of money. And I'm not saying invest in Bitcoin versus that. I'm saying that when it drops, there's an opportunity across the board to invest and make those returns. And I always say is that if you take an example, let's say you had a stock or a crypto out there that was $100, right? And it dropped to 50, right? So it means you're only down 50%. And you buy it at 50, then it goes up to 100. You made 100% return. Even though it just recovered that 50% loss. That's why it's so crucial to invest and dollar cost average in during these down times, is because you can magnify your gains because of the way that numbers work. Like I said, it's a great opportunity. A lot of people think that Bitcoin's downside may be limited. The institution's relatively low coin values. I think that we're very early. I don't agree with any of that. I think that, like I said, is you pay attention, execute, zoom out, like Robert says, and you'll see the full picture.
And I think we're still going to see more volatility. Don't get me wrong. We could see, and I'm going to put myself out there, we could see a $1,900 Ethereum in the coming weeks, in the next couple months. But to me, that is an incredible buying opportunity because of the power and what Ethereum is doing in the market. And so keep that in mind. You should not be looking at these downturns as bad news. It's just normal volatility in the markets while we work through everything that is happening throughout the world. Because remember, crypto is a worldwide platform. It is a worldwide investing category and sector. And so you have to look at the world news, not just what's in front of you. It's so important for everyone to understand that. Okay, let's get on to the next point in the episode, and that's Trump's bold plan. Can Bitcoin erase America's $35 trillion in debt? This one's a doozy. Does the math work? I don't know, but I think it was a very bold statement, and I'm glad he made it because there's just so much topical information, and his team is really being creative of what they can put out there, whether it's fodder or pandering or whatever, to be able to wake people up to him being crypto friendly. And I think that's so important for everyone to understand. So walk our listeners through, what does that look like and what does it mean of using Bitcoin to erase the debt?
Now, by doing this, he would show that America is embracing cryptocurrency. And we already know the valuations. I mean, Kathy Woods has Bitcoin going to this point to $1 million, a 20 times return. And it could go past that over the next 20 years, for example. Bitcoin could be at 5, 10 million in 20 years. If everything goes like we think it's going to go, and the U.S. embraces crypto and other countries embrace it, as the game theory starts to play, and the prices could start moving up very rapidly. So I think it's a great idea. But the problem is they would have to find the seed capital. So they have to come up with a plan over the next 5 years to buy Bitcoin along the way, like they're doing in El Salvador. He has an ambitious plan. He's buying 1 Bitcoin per day forever. which I think is a great idea, especially for a smaller country that struggles with currency problems. They struggle with poverty. This is a great plan for them. And I think we can adopt something like this. If we can't pay it all off, maybe we could help pay some of it off with this plan. So like I said, I think it's a great plan.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if the math works, but I think somewhere in there could be a blended way to use Bitcoin to be able to help with the deficit. But one thing to look at, you hear all the crazy predictions by Kathy Woods and Michael Saylor and all that. But if you look at one simple metric that I think is very reasonable to happen, and that is if Bitcoin were to reach the market cap of gold or surpass it, one Bitcoin would be $750,000. And right now we hear every single day news channels and family offices and people of stature talk about they believe that Bitcoin will surpass the market cap of gold in the near future. So even if that were to take, let's say, 6 to 8 years, that means that right now from here, we'd be at around a 14 or a 13x for Bitcoin. And so that's how the math starts to work, is because as Bitcoin grows and grows in price appreciation, that helps with the debt because the dollar is not going to do the same thing. So you have these retracting mechanisms of the dollar going down and Bitcoin going up, and that's how it can magnify the debt payoff for the national debt. And I really like this stance that they're taking because I think it does have some merit to it. It might be a little outlandish, but that's okay because as long as we have crypto top of mind with these leaders, it is going to be great for the future, even if they're pandering. And remember, we are not endorsing any presidential candidate. We don't care who wins. I just know that a presidential candidate that wins that is pro-crypto is going to be good for adoption and the United States. And a recent article quoted that 75% of U.S. crypto owners said that they consider their candidate based on their crypto stance. So this is very important for everyone to understand. Crypto is a much bigger category than most people think, and it will make a huge difference in the voting process when it comes time to vote our new president in.
Exactly. And I agree with all of that. Even if Harris gets in, she's already shown a pro-crypto stance. They're going to present at the Democratic National Convention that all Democrats can no longer go against Bitcoin, including Elizabeth Warren. Harris has reached out to Mark Cuban to get her up to speed on Bitcoin. And if she's done that, that's just what we know about.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Either candidate, I think, will fire Gary Gensler, and I think they'll be pro-crypto going forward. And I think that's a great sign for cryptocurrency. But if the U.S. does decide to use Bitcoin as a mechanism, the way you explain it, it's almost like a competing mechanism with the dollar falling and crypto going up. And I also thought of something else while you were talking, is that if we had $35 trillion in crypto or Bitcoin, the dollar would all of a sudden have new value. And I bet you that the value of our dollar would stop declining as much and start holding value longer, because a country that holds that much Bitcoin somewhere in a coffer, just like we held gold back in Fort Knox, when gold was held by the U.S. government and it was backed by gold, it may not be backed by Bitcoin, but it was backed by gold. The U.S. had for 60 years, we had almost a solid currency. Like what you could buy for $1 in 1940 was the same thing you could buy for $1 in 1910. Because back then it was gold backed, right? And then we went off the gold standard. That's when we saw massive inflation in the 70s, 80s, and into today. So if a country that has $35 trillion in Bitcoin in their coffers wouldn't see that type of inflation anymore. So not only the value of Bitcoin go up, but our dollar would hold value a lot more. Right? There would still be some inflation, but like what you described is that the dollar would be still decreasing, Bitcoin would still be going up, and eventually it would be less and less to finally it would be on, I think, in 2 years with Bitcoin, our value would be a lot more stable. So I think it's a great idea if they can make it work.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, we've said this many times recently, these are not endorsements. And we're smart enough to understand that a lot of this may not come to fruition because they are going to pander to the audience, but that's okay. The best part we have going for us right now is that the candidates realize the importance of crypto adoption and keeping crypto technology working in the United States and not trying to chase it out of America like Gary Gensler's been doing for years. And that is a huge step moving forward. So let's get into my favorite part, the best news we've had this week, in my opinion, that is another great move, and that is JP Morgan Chase announced that they're now accepting XRP for payments, and this is a game changer yet again for crypto. So you can now use, at JP Morgan Chase, you can use XRP to make credit card payments and mortgage payments, and to me, this is one of the biggest pieces of news we've seen in the last week because of the fact that it just creates more adoption, more use case, and it's just great for XRP and the crypto space in general.
Yeah, when this news broke, I posted it on my pages, and then people were like, that's not actually true. They were like, they're using a third party to accept the payments. They're not technically accepting the payments. Well, nobody on earth does that. Trump campaign doesn't do that. Harris's campaign doesn't do that. There has to be a third party in the middle, right? They don't have the setup to have Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever crypto in bank accounts yet. So they do have to go through a third party. So it's beyond the point. The point is that they've agreed to accept it. It shows mass adoption. It shows institutions are coming in, and it shows the potential for XRP in the future. All of these things happen in the same week. XRP lawsuit is finally resolved. And like we said, all that stuff's happening behind the curtains. Once the bull run takes effect, all of these things are going to start being able to be seen in the valuation of these tokens and coins. And I'm very excited. This has been an exciting week for me. We were able to get some crypto at cheap prices. Two big news things came out about XRP, one of my favorite tokens. Bright future going forward, and I'm very excited about the last 2 quarters of this year.
And one of the things that I think most people don't consider when we see a headline like JP Morgan Chase is accepting XRP for payments, you see the headline. You can now use XRP through a third party to pay for credit cards and mortgages. So you see the headline and you get excited, but then people always look at the negative side. But what they're not looking at is being able to zoom out. Do you think that headline happened overnight? Do you think last week JP Morgan Chase had a meeting and say, hey guys, we should start accepting XRP. It looks like it's going to settle. This has been in the work for months and months because they have to build everything out ahead of the announcement to be able to make the announcement. They're not making the announcement and then going, hey, should we build a website now and allow XRP? No. So this is months and months of work to be able to lead up to these headlines. That is why this is such a huge magnitude for the crypto space when we see these headlines that so many people don't really consider what it does for the future of cryptocurrency, because in 2 or 3 years, we're going to see a completely different world of how blockchain and all of these cryptos we talk about are adopted and used on a daily basis. And that's just one of the best parts about what we get to do is try to break it down for all of you as best that we can so you understand where we're at in the market cycle and what to do, because it does get scary. Every day is different. Every week is different. But at the end of the day, all of this good news adds up to the fact that we are moving in the right direction with our government, with adoption, and with just everyone getting more understanding of what crypto and blockchain means for the future, not just for a use case, but for your wealth building strategies, for your personal wealth. And that is why I am so excited every single week that I get to sit here with you and break it all down for everyone and give you guys the best knowledge and education we can to help you get through it all, because it is not easy to understand, and I get to enjoy this each and every week. So I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and following along. You can find us on Instagram at Crypto Trends Podcast and on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And as always, we are excited for the rest of the year and just everything that is happening and all this great news. And if you like the podcast, you find value from the podcast and our lives, please give us a 5-star review, share the podcast with a friend, and we'll see you next week.